We're back here on CBS Sports HQ, where yesterday the Pittsburgh Steelers' playoff chances took a hit behind quarterback Mason Rudolph as they fell to the Chicago Bears. With the loss, the Steelers' chances fall to just 41% to make the NFL playoffs. So as the Steelers drop to 6-5, on the same day their AFC North rival, the Baltimore Ravens, improved to 6-5 with a win against the New York Jets. Here's where things stand currently with the AFC playoff picture. Now, luckily for Pittsburgh, the pathway back to the playoffs is clear, but very difficult, with their first opportunity coming against the Bills in a very pivotal Week 13 matchup. For much more on the Steelers' path to the postseason, let's go ahead and welcome back Ryan Wilson. Ryan, I just mentioned while the Steelers fall to 6-5, they give away the division lead to their rival, Baltimore Ravens, who improved to 6-5 with a win over the Jets. What's your outlook on the Steelers right now?
Not great, Jordan. Let's be honest. There was a time not too long ago where the Ravens were 1-5, and at no point over the last 5 games has anyone said anything other than this. By looking at the schedule, the Ravens are going to be back in the mix because the Steelers, I don't want to call them paper champions, but it was clear that they were winning with smoke and mirrors early. Aaron Rodgers has been good, but he hasn't been the Aaron Rodgers of old. The Aaron Rodgers is going to get enshrined to the Hall of Fame 5 years after he retires. The defense has been a shell of itself, and that much has been a reality. And as you mentioned, they got a pretty tough schedule coming up, starting with the Buffalo Bills, who are going to be incredibly angry about the game that they lost on Thursday to the Houston Texans, and are also looking up at a team in their division in the New England Patriots. So it's going to be tough sledding. And that 41% that you mentioned sounds incredibly optimistic when you look at the rest of the schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So overall, things not great at the moment. And they have this pivotal game that is on CBS this upcoming weekend against the Bills, as we noted. According to Sportsline, their chances actually fall to 27% to make the playoffs with a loss this upcoming weekend to the Bills. Mike Tomlin does expect, though, Aaron Rodgers to be back for that game, but will that be enough?
Look, Jordan, hope ain't a plan, and that's pretty much all the Steelers have right now. Do you think they miss George Pickens as a number 2 receiver? That's been one of their other bugaboos. DK Metcalf has been pretty good as their number 1. There's been no clear-cut number 2 after that. The running game has been pretty good. The offensive line has played okay in terms of pass protection, much better as a run-blocking unit. Darnell Washington has been a fun development. But the offense has been relatively stagnant when they need to push the ball down the field beyond 5 or 6 yards. And as I mentioned, the defense has struggled. And by the way, if you struggle to stop Caleb Williams, who is incredibly athletic and coming into his own, I don't know what to tell you when you have to go to Buffalo to face Josh Allen. So that's a concern. And yeah, you could say, hey, man, Mason Rudolph had to start in Chicago because Aaron Rodgers was injured. I understand that. That team was 6-4 coming into that game. And as I mentioned, it doesn't get a lot easier. The Bills, then they're at the Ravens. Say a prayer before that one. Miami at Detroit. Say another prayer, Jordan. And then it's Cleveland, and then the Ravens again. And fingers crossed, you hope they go 3-3 and find a way to get to 9-8. But that's going to be a problem, too, when you look at the Ravens' schedule and what they have to look forward to over the final 6 weeks.
You mentioned George Pickens. This is a very interesting note from our control room that just came through. George Pickens has 1,044 yards so far this season. Every Steelers wide receiver combined has 1,009. So very interesting note. Do with that information whatever you want with that information. So I'm holding on to that 41%. Ryan, take us through their upcoming schedule, which, as we've mentioned, is very difficult, starting with that game against the Bills, and let's predict how these games will actually play out.
Yeah, let's do it. So next week, I would imagine they're going to lose on the road in Buffalo unless Josh Allen gets kidnapped, and they maybe kidnap 12 or 15 other people off of that team. Then it's at Baltimore for that Ravens matchup, and those are always going to be close, and I think the Steelers come out on the short end of the stick. The Dolphins game, you would imagine they'd win at home. At the Lions, the Lions aren't the team we've seen the last few years, but they are still really, really good. We saw that in overtime yesterday. They lose that game. At Cleveland, I think they win that game. And then finally against the Ravens, I think that'll be a homecoming game of sorts. We know about the rivalry there. I think they win that last game to get to 9-8. The problem, Jordan, is when we look at the Ravens schedule and what that means for the Steelers and their playoff chances.
All right, so why? Just a follow there.
Because I think the Ravens worst case scenario, go 9-8. They'll split with the Steelers, as we talked about there. And guess what? They win the tiebreaker. So they're going to win the division by virtue of the tiebreaker. And then I think as we go from 41% to 20-something% if they lose to the Bills, the Steelers do next week, to about 4% if both teams, the Ravens and the Steelers, finish 9-8. The Ravens will be in. The Steelers will be on the outside looking in with a 96% chance to spend January and February on the couch with us because they will not be playing playoff football.
Big yikes. All right, so all this being said, after starting, of course, 4-1, they've now dropped 4 of their last 6 games. If the 2025 campaign keeps trending this way, it raises a question. Should Mike Tomlin be on the hot seat?
No, I don't think so. And look, I understand fans' frustration, and they've been frustrated for quite a while. But the thing I keep coming back to is this: how many head coaches, Hall of Fame or otherwise, who were successful with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, suddenly maintained that success when the Hall of Fame quarterback left or retired? And the answer is pretty close to 0. And I think the takeaway for me is that you can argue that the Steelers haven't done this right in terms of building the roster in a post-Ben Roethlisberger world. The other argument is that they always win more games than lose, or worst case, finish 500. Now, fans don't want to hear that. They want to win Super Bowls, especially when they're accustomed to winning Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. So I think it's going to be another year of frustration. But the other thing I always come back to is this, Jordan. You can fire Mike Tomlin, but what's plan B? Like, who's going to come in and do what Mike Tomlin has done, what Bill Cowher has done before him? And the other thing that I like to point out is that how long do you think Mike Tomlin will be unemployed should the Steelers decide to move on from him? And I said the over-under at 5 minutes. So you better have a plan in place. You better get the plan right, or you're going to wish for the days where you're going 9-8 every year and having a chance to make the playoffs without a franchise quarterback.
Understand the concern, but, pump the brakes a little bit. And who's better at this point is the takeaway from that. Ryan Wilson, always great to see you, my friend, here on CBS Sports HQ. And just to play off of Ryan's point, take a look at the most consecutive seasons without a losing record in NFL history. Steelers up there at 21 consecutive seasons. So, quick break.